Hey, welcome everyone. This is Mind Your Own Business. My name is Pablo, and thanks for listening.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mind Your Own Business podcast, which we will talk about leadership, culture, and creating the irresistible workplace we all want to be a part of. I have the privilege today of speaking with Adam J. here. He's a consultant, coach, advisor. He also has just told me he has his own podcast. So we'll promote that. I'm gonna add the links in the show notes as well. But Adam, it's a pleasure to meet you, and yeah, how are you today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I hate that word consultant, and I use it myself, but it's over the years got such a dirty language that people are like, "Oh, you're a consultant. You just can't sell, or you can't lead, or you can't do
Oh,
anything."
yeah, no, I'm sorry. No, I think
No,
it's
don't
like
be sorry, because
going
when
through the
people ask
motions,
me,
like,
I say the same thing.
right? Yeah, like what I guess would be a better word
You
for that.
know, that's a great question.
Or
Like if I'm on the street or if I'm talking to friends and they're like, "What do you do for a living?" My normal answer is I do fractional sales leadership and sales coaching, and then they
yeah,
turn around and say, "So you're a consultant?"
yeah. Well, that will happen. So anyway, no. To as an intro, as a way of introduction, who do you help, or yeah, what are you
Yeah.
most passionate about?
So there's two things I love. My primary business and who I really help is seed to early stage Series B founders transition from founder-led sales to sales-led sales. So maybe you have no sales leader, no sales team, no sales process. That's where I come in. Or maybe you do have a sales team, but you're struggling to actually set up your process. You're not necessarily seeing the results that you would like. I'll come in, work with you, and work with your team to really help build that go to market motion. And then the second part of the business, Pablo, that I love, but it's arguably the side hustle, is leadership coaching. So it's helping new managers go from managers to leaders because they're very different things. Anyone can manage people. I can tell you, hey, you have to get this podcast done by 11 o'clock today. You need to call 27 customers, and dude, you got to go close some business. That's very different than leading people.
I love that because I always say management is not leadership. Like a supervisor can just look at spreadsheets all day long, but a leader inspires others. So I guess how do you train in your based on your experience? How do you train someone to go from like management to actual leadership?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. I think the first one is to recognize it's not about you at all anymore. You know, I think and I remember back when I was first promoted to my first manager role, I was like, oh, great. And I didn't get it after for the first two times, but different story. I was like, great, I'm in charge, right? Like, I'm a top performer. I'm going to get everyone on this team to replicate what I did, and we're all going to do it my way. Guess what? No one wants to do shit your way. Like, that's just a fact. And you have to remember that you were put in the position of leadership because you're different. If everyone was performing the same or everyone did the same thing, they wouldn't need you to be a leader. So it's not about you. You have to really recognize that your job isn't to make, 12 different Adam J's. My job is to make Pablo the best version of Pablo. My job is to make Crystal the best version of Crystal and really understand people's individual strengths at their core and work to maximize those versus what you think people should be doing.
Because you know what, to that point, I've seen so many times the team that says like, all right, so Adam is great at selling X. She's a great salesperson. He should be teaching the rest of the team how
Right,
to
he should be
sell
the
like he
manager.
sells. He should be the manager. So I see it. I see it. I don't think that because you sold a ton of X products, that means that you can inspire and lead and be like have those. I want to quote big soft skills because I don't think they're soft. I think they're pretty hard. But yeah.
They're so different. Like, I was talking to someone about this the other day. Some of the and listen, I'm a big believer that to be a leader, you have to have done. I don't. I've seen very few leaders that come in and have sales leaders, for example, that have never sold that can now teach you how to sell. But oftentimes the best leaders are the middle to upper middle of the pack, not that top rep. Because listen, I was a top rep and I was the arrogant top rep. When you're a top rep, you're very arrogant. And
Yeah.
Arrogance doesn't work with leadership. When you're leading, it's such a different, you talk about soft skills, it's such a different skill set versus even mentoring versus selling. I've seen incredible leaders that aren't that great at sales. And transparently, I've seen some unbelievable sales folks that there's not a chance in the world they could get anyone to rally behind them because they don't have those skills to get people to want to follow them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to that point, on that same note, what do you think is fundamentally like the biggest challenges when you coach these teams, or we get in touch with for even for the revenue side of the business, what do you think are the biggest challenges when it comes to like employee churn or even employee mental health, or anxiety, burnout, and all this culture? I mean, company culture and
Yeah.
leadership. What are the things that biggest like red flags that people should be aware of?
Oof. So hustle culture still exists. It shouldn't. And listen, don't get me wrong. I work hard. I believe in working hard. I want my team to work hard. But this mentality of everything's an emergency and everything has to be done now and everything is urgent is a giant, giant red flag for me. And I say this, and people on my teams hear me say it often. We're not curing cancer, right? So I started my career in healthcare. I had a device that eradicated polyps and fibroids from women's uterus, which helped to prevent cancer. So I've been there. We're selling software, dude. Like at the end of the day, like if it has to wait an hour or 2 hours, it's not the end of the world. So I think that hustle culture is really, really toxic. I think having leadership that isn't open to feedback, leadership that thinks that their way is always the right way, and like, God forbid you say, hey, let's look at this differently, let's think outside the box. That creates an environment of like the us versus them, this upper echelon, and we're always right. The other one is this mindset, and it ties into hustle culture, of you always have to be on. I had a leader, I had a manager, I can't use the word leader, that would send Slack messages. And if you didn't respond within like 20 minutes, no joke, you would get a response that says, I see you online, your bubble is green. Why are you not answering me? Everything can't be an emergency. Like just because the bubble's green doesn't mean I'm sitting here looking at Slack on my screen waiting for you
Doing
to
nothing.
respond. So I think that it's important that you have boundaries, and that goes both ways, right? You want to set boundaries so that you could have a productive work environment. And then the last thing when it comes to anxiety is you want to make sure that you don't have this kind of passive aggressive leadership style where people are not necessarily saying what they feel or what they're worried about or what they're afraid of, but they'll drop these hints in a passive aggressive manner. So I had a CEO who would look at sales dashboards every day, which is great. Every CEO should. I encourage that. But if the numbers weren't what they would be, the CEO would take a screenshot of the dashboard, drop it in general in Slack. No other comments. Just drop a screenshot of the crappy numbers. Like we all know the numbers are bad. All that does is cause angst for everyone in the company. We should be very transparent about what it is we want to achieve, why we want to achieve it, if there's a problem. But when you play this passive aggressive game, all you're doing is causing deep anxiety in your team of like, oh, now the CEO's looking at this. Like now it's a problem. Our numbers are down. Like, am I going to lose my job? Like I literally had people come to me and be like, hey, so-and-so posted this. Like, are we all going to lose our job? You're not. It's my job to manage. Let me help here. But like, I'd be lying if I said it didn't stress me out as the leader.
Yeah. And so, and I guess what have you seen is so is it all like top from the top down, like that culture that
No,
spreads, or is it?
no. I mean, listen, everything starts with the top, right? Like at the end of the day, the way the CEO, the C-suite, and senior leadership lead and speak and act certainly flow through the organization. But I think a mistake a lot of orgs make when they're talking about like culture is not realizing that even a BDR, an AE, any role could be so incredibly toxic on the culture if you don't hire right and kill it. And, real life example, I hired someone who, and I'll get a little vulnerable here. Like none of us are perfect, right? I hired someone who I thought was great, fantastic recommendations, solid sales presence, and they joined X organization. And within a week, like the BDR team was complaining to me. They're like, this person is coming in, thinks that they're better than us. They're set up to train with us on like what our sequences are and what our methodology is. And the first thing out of their mouth is, well, I wouldn't do it that way. You need to do it this way. And I've been in AE for 10 years and I have more experience than you. And you need to listen to me. And it's so toxic because we brought someone in who we thought was great, but all they did was demean the rest of the team that we ultimately had to let the person go in 3 weeks. Like we gave them multiple, feedback sessions.
Right.
And they literally said, Pablo, in this feedback session, well, they're just BDRs. Like I'm an AE and they need to learn from my experience. So yes, while it does start top down, we can't underestimate the fact of the importance of interviewing properly. A culture interview is a must. I didn't do it. I will never not do it again. Making sure that someone on the team interviews this person as well. And that not that they're a culture fit, but that they're a culture addition.
Right.
But it's the right addition.
Right. I'm assuming it's not easy, like because anyone can play nice in the interview process. Let's say it's 2 weeks. They can pretend to be like the nicest person on earth, a prince, and then when the real life, day-to-day work starts, the stress of the day-to-day and whatnot, they then cover the truth itself.
Yeah.
So I read somewhere, actually, Culture to Win, I think is the book, that suggests hiring very, very slow and firing very, very fast. If that's the case, which is like knowing someone culturally even before, like before you hire.
So,
But
yeah, you're right. I think there's ways to do it. I hire mostly salespeople, right? So sales, marketing, customer success, but mostly sales. And you said it. You could be really good, whether it's a 2-week hiring process or a 3-month hiring process. Like, I'm trained to sell you. I'm going to be a really nice guy in the interview process. You have to back channel, right? Look at what this person is posting on social media. Look at how people are commenting and interacting with them on social media and how they are responding to those comments. Talk to people with whom they've worked with. But it's also important that you have an interview process that's set up with different stakeholders and different business units with different personalities that are going to challenge them to think differently. A little bit of tension in the interview process and trying to throw people off their game is important. You're not doing it to be an a-hole. I'm doing it to see how you handle someone pushing back on you with your idea of someone telling you like, dude, like you're wrong. I wouldn't do that. You're going to do one of a few things. You're either going to double down on your idea politely and explain why you are vested in it, which is great. We don't want to push over. You're just going to push over and be like, oh, yeah, you're right, Pablo. I changed my mind. This isn't a good idea. I mean, that's not good either. Or you're going to get really defensive. And that's what we don't want to see. And when you start pushing people a little bit in the interview process, it's a little bit of a way to overcome that.
wow.
But I do agree with hire slow, fire fast. And I know that's controversial, and I'm going to take flack for saying it, and that's fine. When you have a bad culture fit, if you don't act immediately, every day is going to get worse and worse, and it's going to permeate. And then not only do you have a bad culture fit, now you're the person who isn't willing to do anything about it. The number one thing that I tell leaders that I work with and that I coach is you have to be willing to eat a slice of humble pie. So whether it's hiring or another example, I'll tell people, listen, I'm going to roll out a lot of ideas, right? I'm going to want to try a lot of things. I love to experiment. Sometimes it isn't going to work. And I will be the first one to get up there and be like, which one of you let me do this? Because this was a stupid idea and I shouldn't have done that. You have to be willing to just say, I was wrong. And that's okay.
So vulnerability is a big part of leading, right? And so I want to go back to what you said, because, the bad apple can just, ruin the entire batch. And so a very toxic team member. But I'm thinking someone out there, and the reason I'm going to ask this question is that I just had a conversation with a friend who works in a company, that doesn't matter. She was telling me that the environment is kind of toxic. She was asking if there's something she could do about it, like knowing that the leadership is kind of vanilla, like they don't
Okay.
really care as much. They don't do
Mm.
anything. It's not that they. It's not bad, but they also don't do anything. It's just like going through the motions, boring work, nothing, just
Yep.
exciting. So she was like, "Should I do something about that, or is that like a waste of time?" So I see in her like like a positive like leadership trait of I want to take charge of this. I want to have this a good place to work in, but will that project be killed? Let's say a project, would that energy be killed by my leadership? Is that a waste of time? So I'm assuming a lot of people out there are thinking, yeah, this place is not great. I can make it great. I can have great connections. We can have some fun, let's say fun after work.
Sure.
However is good for the team. But maybe they're afraid of speaking up, or they just think it's a waste of time. What do you think about that?
I don't think it's ever a waste of time to be a culture champion. I think that, listen, you don't want to go pounding your feet and going to management and saying, we need to change everything and the culture sucks. But I think by trying to be the culture that you want and being that champion and embracing it and trying to get others to embrace it, it's the only way things are going to change, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. And when we talk about becoming a leader, part of that and where that starts is leading without the title. And leading without the title means being that culture champion, going to Adam and saying, dude, like, I know that you've only been here a couple weeks, but some of the things that you're saying are rubbing people the wrong way. And I'm not trying to be an a-hole here. What I'm trying to do is make sure that you succeed, because I know that you're not intentionally doing this. And a lot of it is in how you word it. But if someone isn't going to step up and let people know that the behavior is wrong, or conversely, that the behavior is great. And it's like, Pablo, I am so glad that you said that. Like, we have needed this kind of change and this kind of energy for a long time. And I'm thrilled that you're here. That's how you become that culture champion, and how you drive, not change, drive the culture at an organization.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I
When you
agree
don't
with
say
that.
anything, you're complicit.
Yeah, you're right. You're just like, yeah, you have to lead. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, leading without the title, I think is key. You can lead even if it's a team of three people. You can be that little, like you can carry the flag there, and you can just the ripple effect is there. Even if you don't notice, next day, or if you don't notice, like the huge impact that we all want to make in the world, but it's there.
Well, think about, excuse me, think about leading without a title for a moment. Like, how many orgs have we all been a part of that, you have your like VP, you have your director, you have your manager. No one goes to those people. They go to that one person on the team that has made themselves accessible, that lives to help and mentor people. That's the person that's leading without the title. That's the person that hopefully, if they want it, not everyone wants to be a manager or a leader, but if they want it, that gets that next role. That's how you step up, how you get better, and how you learn.
Yeah. Yeah, and to kind of wrap up the conversation, which has been great. I want to talk about like the impact that has in a team, and how I want to say expensive it is to make these leadership mistakes for a team. Have you seen teams like things go south because of a toxic relationship, even though they have a great product or what have you, something like that?
Hiring a bad VP of sales is the single most costly mistake you can make for a number of reasons. The second one is letting toxic behavior continue, because what's going to happen, and I have witnessed this firsthand, is you have this toxic person who comes in. They're maybe closing deals, maybe not, but they are making everyone else around them feel like garbage. That's going to tank productivity. That's going to tank morale. People aren't going to work as hard. People are going to start taking off. And ultimately, what's going to happen is people are going to quit. And the cost of replacing the people that are going to quit is twofold. It's not just, oh, I have to go out and hire someone and onboard them and the recruiting costs. It's also the cost of the lost business that these people bring in, whether they're a BDR, an AE, marketing. It's all of the ramp time for everything that they're doing. So that single bad hire, let's just use mid-market salaries. Let's say they're $100,000, mid-market AE. It doesn't cost you $100,000. It's going to cost you 5 to 10x that by the time you're done losing business. So every hire needs to be looked at as a potential $500,000 hire because of that compounding effect. It is awful.
Yeah, and not only that, also the time. Like it's just the 10x money. Time is
Yeah,
time
because
you
you're
don't want to
coaching that
spend.
person
Like,
now, right? Now
yeah,
I'm having 4 one-on-ones with you every week as to, what you need to change and why your behavior is unacceptable. That is
right,
time you're not selling. That's time I'm not leading. That's time I'm not strategizing. There's so many things that go into
right.
consideration, which goes to hire slow, fire fast. And fire fast doesn't mean don't give someone a chance, right? Everyone
Oh yeah,
deserves a warning.
right,
And I say all the time to people, listen, if I ever let you go, when we get on that Zoom, you're not going to be surprised because we've had so many conversations up until that you arguably
right.
will look at me and be like, Adam, I know where this is going.
Yep,
But what you can't do is let it go on and on and on.
right. No, this is great. This has been great, Adam. I want to be mindful of your time, but tell us a bit about you. Where can people find you if you want to promote again your podcast here? Tell us about your work.
I appreciate it. So, like I said, I work with early stage founders from the fractional leadership side, and any managers who really want to work on leadership is the other side. 3 places you could find me: LinkedIn, like everyone else. Website is adamj.io, and podcast is called Revenue Reimagined. It is revenue-reimagined.com. Give us a listen, and we're excited to continue to share ideas with the best of the best.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
See you,
having me.
everybody. Thank you.